Hello, and welcome to Daily Spanish 101. This channel is dedicated to teaching Spanish for those who may feel they have difficulty learning a different language. My desire is to offer a simplistic approach to learning Spanish and hopefully help you as the observer have a more successful outcome in your learning journey. When I first began learning Spanish, I believe it would have been much easier had I been given an entire overhead picture in how I could view the language as it works. And yet, what does that picture look like? I'm sure it is different for every individual. Therefore, I will do my best to explain how Spanish works in a progressive manner, move in a way to help you communicate quickly and effectively with others. Lesson 1. Pronouns, Verbs, and Sentence Structure. When we discuss Spanish, the verbs are what change the most. This is not a bad thing. It is something we do in English as well. As an example, look at the verb being or to be. In English, you would say I am, you are, he is, or she is. While this may seem like common sense, we really don't think of ever saying I are, nor do we ever think of saying you am, because those do not change. There is a standard that we keep when we want to say someone or who someone is. This concept applies to every single Spanish verb. All Spanish verbs follow patterns which never change. Spanish only has three types of verbs: AR, ER, and IR verbs. These are the only three that you will ever see in Spanish. We consider these verbs to be in their infinitive form when we see them. Then, when we would like to apply these verbs to a pronoun, that is when we must change or modify the verb for it to work with the pronoun. Earlier I shared that if I could go back, I would have preferred an overhead picture to seeing how the verbs worked in these patterns, and here is an overhead picture which I think will help. Here is an overhead view of the preterite tense, present tense, and future tense. Here on the first slide you can see the past tense or preterite tense with the red highlighted headlines. The present tense is in the middle of the screen and it is highlighted in green, and the future tense is labeled in purple. Notice what I say about the future tense. The future tense, you will add these letters to the infinitive of the verb. Now again, the infinitive is just a fancy word to explain the original form of the verb. So let's try and look at an example for a regular AR verb. Let's look at hablar. Hablar means to speak. Every time you see the AR at the end of the verb, or an ER or an IR at the end of the verb, meaning it's in the infinitive form, it will mean to something. So this one is to speak, hablar. When I would like to apply it to a pronoun, I must change the ending. That means I take away the AR and I apply the ending which applies to the pronoun. I speak, yo hablo. You speak, tú hablas. He or she speaks, él or ella habla. Then when you go to the plural side, it will be we speak, nosotros hablamos. Or we can go down to the very end where it says they or you all will speak. They, ellos, hablan. Or you all, ustedes, which is not on the screen right here, speak. Ustedes is you all speak. Now, if we go back to our overhead view, this is our present tense verb conjugation pattern. Notice the ARs are using the hablar present tense. Notice that the ER and the IR follow the same pattern. I have hablar for the AR verbs, and I have vivir for the IR and ER verbs. Now, as we are going through these, I will simply demonstrate to you how you can find these in a sentence as well as how you can learn the pronouns. We have not looked at the pronouns yet. We have simply discussed how verbs will change their ending to apply to a pronoun. So let's look at the pronouns and then we can come back to this position. Now, as we are looking here at the pronouns, you can see on the screen, as I say, sadly, in order for us to learn these various things inside of the language, we will need to know nouns, which are persons, places, or things, as well as the pronouns, substituting the I, you, he or she, it, we, they, you all, in order to replace the noun. Then you will have the verbs, and then we will have adjectives. Now, everything else I'm really not going to grammatically get into. If you happen to be a very big grammar Nazi or technical terminologies as it pertains to the parts of speech, I do apologize. I'm not trying to be rude or mean. However, in order for us to learn this language and actually begin to apply it, I would like to simply use these simple initial parts of speech. If you notice on the bottom, I also have the sentence structure, which is placed in there. This we can use in order to begin creating sentences and being familiar with those verbs as we begin to read our Spanish and then eventually as we begin to speak Spanish. Now, at any point in time that you need to record or take a screenshot of this video, I'm more than happy that you do so. That way you can become more fluent and better. As I said, this is just for you. It's to help you. Now, as we look at this diagram a little bit more close, you'll see that the I, is at the top left side of the paper. It is the singular side. Then you will have tu, you, and the usted. Usted will couple itself with he and she at the very bottom, él and ella. Then we will go over to the plural side, and you can see we, nosotros. If it is all female group of people, it would be nosotras. All right. Then we have vosotros, which is out of Spain. Then you have ustedes, ellos, and ellas. You all would be best ideally suited for ustedes. In order to clean this up, let's look at a different picture, but it still is the same outline. I am just simply separating so that we are able to see how the verb conjugations will work here in the future. Now, if you look at this diagram, it is the same diagram. I have simply separated the verb conjugation locations. So, yo, I, will have its own verb conjugation. To, you, will have its own verb conjugation. He, she, and you formal will have its own verb conjugation. Then you will go to the plural side with we. Then you will have the vosotros for Spain. Then you will have ellos, ellas, ustedes. They as a feminine group, and ustedes, you all. Okay, so look at this vosotros that we have here. Vosotros I've highlighted here in red to demonstrate that it is dedicated towards Spain. We technically do not use this conjugation in Latin America nor here in the United States when we are dialoguing with people out of Central or South America as well as other countries. Usually vosotros is dedicated towards people who use it in Spain. All right. Now, do you think you can figure out or remember who these pronouns apply to? Well, if you are having a difficult time, I will go through one more lessonary slide to demonstrate to you that you need to have this in your memory bank and you may not forget it, because otherwise this will be difficult for you to apply verbs. All right, The first one is je, I. This will be the first singular pronoun that we deal with. The next one, tu, you. This is our secondary or second person pronoun that we will adjust a verb to. The third group, él or ella, as well as usted, formal, somebody that I do not know. When we go over towards tu, notice that it stays different from usted. We do not use them interchangeably. We use él, ella, and usted together. Usted is for a stranger. Tu is for a person you know. On the plural side, we have we, nosotros. This is the first plural, and it includes me. Then you have ellos and ellas, people that we speak about. It does not include me, and they are most likely not present. We speak about them. Then you have ustedes, you all, people that you are speaking at. Not about, but people you speak at. This last group is sharing the same verb conjugation. One of them is speaking about somebody, the other is speaking at them. Ustedes is speaking at them. They and you all, ellos and ellas, is speaking about them. When we go back to nosotros, it is speaking about myself included in a specific group, and I am using we. We are going to the movies. Whereas if I use ellos and ellas, I am saying they. Now, obviously, in a sentence, you are not saying ellos and ellas. No, you're using one of the other. If you are speaking at someone, then you are telling them ustedes because you're speaking directly at them. Okay, that's why we say you all, or here in the South, y'all. All right, and we've returned to our original slide. Can you remember the pronouns and how they are applied? If you need to pause the video, please do. Give yourself a quiz. Try and make sure that you are familiar with what is necessary in order for us to move forward and conjugate verbs. I will not be going over the pronouns multiple occasions. You will need to know these. All right, here are the answers. Were you able to get them? Hopefully you were able to be more familiar with how the verb setup will be and how the pronouns are organized. In this way, we will be able to easily reference the verbs and easily discuss them and then demonstrate how they apply. And this is it. This will be fairly simple for you. And our last point of this lesson is learning about sentence structure. Now, if you notice here, we have already identified or learned noun and pronoun will usually be the first item inside of our Spanish sentence structure. After that, you will put the no if you would like to make the sentence a negative. Once you have done these two things, we will then use our conjugated verb that applies to the pronoun or noun. Now, in Spanish, we usually do not need to use a pronoun because the verb already dictates what pronoun is being used. All right, so we will see this here in our next slide. Let's look. Notice here I have the pronoun yo, and then I have hablo, speak. That dictates to me what it ought to look like in a sentence. I speak. Yo hablo. Then you have tu. You. Tu hablas. You speak. Now we have already created simple sentences. You could put a period at the end of I speak and we are completed with a simple sentence. So this is how it is going to apply into Spanish. Then we just look and learn for verbs and then we begin creating our sentences. This is very simplistic. Please remember, as I have said at the beginning of the video, there are only three types of verbs: AR, ER, and IR verbs. So when we come back to this sentence structure and you would like to use a pronoun, simply write the pronoun down. you can put it in Spanish. Then, if you would like to say a negative thing, I do not speak, you could put yo, you could put the no, and then you put the conjugated verb hablo. Yo no hablo. Now, notice here in the sentence structure, I have the next one after the verbs. It says details. If I would like to put a noun, as an example, the noun español, then I could say yo no hablo español. Now, if I would like to say you do not speak Spanish, then I would say tú no hablas, because I need to conjugate it with the tú, and then español. We've already made a simple sentence, and this works. Adjectives will always be last. Now, is this always the case in Spanish? Not necessarily. However, for our learning time, let's just simply say adjectives always last. That will help us remember to put an adjective at the end if necessary. So if I wanted to say, yo no hablo español, and then I could say bien. Bien means good or fine. I can simply say, yo no hablo español bien. And then we have a great simple sentence to begin. All right. Hopefully this has helped you for lesson 1. In lesson 2, we will move forward and we will begin looking at verb conjugations that are regular in present tense for the AR verbs. And this will help us just simply to make simple sentences, and we can move forward from there. Thank you, and thank you for coming to Daily Spanish 101.